Mexico is a remarkable country known for its beautiful beaches, lovely scenery, and intriguing culture. But in 2006, President Calderon declared war on drug traffickers.
Dr. Martin Luther King has been shot to death.
Crashed into the upper floors of one of the Twin Towers.
This graph shows the crime levels from 2006 to 2012. As you can see, 2008, 2011, and 2012 have been Mexico's most violent years, but we believe by the end of 2012 will be the most violent year Mexico has ever seen.
Recently, the Mexican government has noticed that the cartels are getting more advanced, and at the forefront of it all are Los Zetas. Los Zetas is one of the most powerful drug cartels in Mexico, and considered by the U.S. government the most technologically advanced, sophisticated, and dangerous drug cartel operating in Mexico. But in order to really understand Los Zetas, you have to understand the origins of this complex gang.
Let's travel back to July 18, 1915. A boy named Juan Nepomuceno Guerra was just born. A baby, the most innocent thing on earth. But in just 30 years, he would earn his way up to being number 3 on FBI's Most Wanted. At 15, he started smuggling whiskey across the border, although there were only 40 members of this gang called the Gulf Gang. Guerra had many connections and was able to control all of Nuevo León. Eventually, in the 1950s, his nephew convinced him to expand and start smuggling marijuana and cocaine. For 27 years, he successfully smuggled drugs across the border. In the 1980s, they stopped being smugglers but progressed into becoming suppliers. In 1983, they met a guy named Henry Johnson, an ex-U.S. military man with loads of guns and an addiction to cocaine. These two worked out a deal and they were both set for life. In 1990, Henry died, and his son Jebediah took on the family trade. On one trip, Abrego broke into his car to steal some money and discovered Jebediah's ADHD tablets, which were called Dyson.
If you're a little confused to why this is important, it's because Dexin is a medication that is mainly consisted of methamphetamine. So by 1993, the Gulf Cartel, now having over 130 members, started dealing meth. In 1995, Abrego joined his uncle on FBI's Most Wanted with 22 accounts of drug trafficking. Later on in 1995, he was captured by American forces. If it wasn't for
Osiel Cárdenas Gulen,
a man who helped Abrego by driving a getaway car, after
Osiel
joined the gang with his friend
Salvador Gómez
and his brother
Antonio Cárdenas Gulen,
who lived in
Coahuila, Tamaulipas,
and
Hidalgo.
The territory expanded.
In 1996, Abrego was caught by the FBI, and the gang was left to be commanded by the 3 men, Osiel Cárdenas Gulen, Salvador Gómez, Antonio Cárdenas Gulen. Osiel wanted more power, so he killed Salvador, and Antonio and Osiel were left to command the Gulf Cartel. Antonio feared for his life, knowing Osiel was willing to do anything for power. Antonio ran away with many of the men, and Osiel became the undisputed leader. Unfortunately, Osiel's cartel didn't work out as well as he had hoped. He went to his brother's gang and asked to be the enforcer for the Gulf Cartel. Osiel sought and recruited over 30 deserters of an elite Mexican force. These people were high-ranking military officers, whose radio line was Z. In Spanish, Z said Zeta, so they decided to call the group Los Zetas, the Zs. One of the most important men who deserted was Arturo de Sena, who recruited 30 more elite military men with promises of higher pay. Doing this made Osiel confident to let Arturo rule Los Zetas. Eventually, Zetas grew into the size and population that covered over 1/3 of Mexico, as well as having more than 300 men.
When
Osiel
was imprisoned in 2006, Zetas made a decision to break away from the Gulf Cartel. They planned to do this by allying with many gangs, such as
the Beltrán Leiva Cartel, Juarez Cartel,
and
Tijuana Cartel.
Then, since they were protectors for Zetas, they would begin to purposely lose battles, costing the Gulf Cartel land and men. When the Gulf Cartel were too weak, the Zetas officially broke away, and crushed most of the Gulf Cartel. With all these alliances and the territory stolen from the Gulf Cartel, Zetas' land grew immensely, covering half of Mexico. Now Zetas being its own gang, it started doing more than just drug trafficking. It did many things like murders, terrorism, rape, money laundering, and human trafficking. Los Zetas also committed many attacks, such as the Apodic prison riot where 44 Gulf Cartel members were slaughtered and 37 Zetas escaped. They also committed the 2011 Monterrey casino attacks where 52 people were killed, the San Fernando massacres where 265 people and the
Altamira
prison brawl where 31 Gulf Cartel inmates were killed.
Obviously, these attacks are horrible, and the Mexican government knows it. They've been trying to stop it, and they've recently been succeeding. By the beginning of 2012, Mexico's government escalated its offensive against the Zetas, with the announcement that 5 new military bases will be installed in the group's primary areas of operation. President Calderón sent 6,500 troops to Michoacán, which was noted as the first major offensive strike on Mexico's organized crime. During his presidency, Felipe Calderón deployed over 46,000 troops across Michoacán. But Zetas have a defense. They are replacing the government.
They're trying to corrupt the police and federal forces. So the Mexican government is specially training their men not to fall for the tricks of Zetas, who offer higher pay and protection. To ensure they don't fall for the tricks,
President Felipe Calderón is increasing their pay drastically. Other than that, Mexico decided to call on one of their strongest allies for support, the United States of America. President Bush and President Calderón and the other 7 presidents of the Central American countries signed the Merida Inactive as a written document showing that all the countries will work to rid the continent of drug trafficking.
The United States government sent American troops to Mexico as mentors to the Mexican troops in things like weapon handling, torture training, and negotiating. They also closed a deal to get 8 Black Hawks from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and 6 Eurocopters from former French President Nicolas Sarkozy. With their new training and equipment following a law enforcement investigation named Operation Blackjack, executed by the ATF, the DED, the HSI, the ICE, and the FBI. 3 Zetas safe houses were identified in Mexico and raided by the Mexican Federal Security Forces, releasing more than 40 kidnapped individuals and seized the largest weapon seizure in the history of Mexico. It included 540 rifles, including 288 assault rifles, and several .50 caliber rifles, 287 hand grenades, 2 M72 Law anti-tank weapons, 5,000 rounds of ammunition, 67 ballistic vests, and 14 sticks of dynamite. Along with many other raids and blockades, Los Zetas are losing weapons while the Mexican government is gaining weapons. Another large impact on Zetas' safety is technology. The Mexican government, with this new technology, it allows the Mexican army to discover weapons in a house similar to an airport scanner discover weapons on a person. With all these advances in technology and personnel, 2012 will be the most violent year Mexico has ever seen, but it will also be the turning point of the war. The military and federal forces should be able to get a hold and end the war by 2015 and begin Mexico's rehabilitation process.